welcome back. We are in Matthew 15 and we are in part 5. And I've recruited my husband once more. You guys have been reaching out to me and saying you really enjoy it when we get to have the discussions. So just know that if you haven't told already, whenever I get him, that means we go closer to 10 minutes, sometimes a tad bit over. So, and also I threw the chapter at him and gave him all the discussion beforehand, and I was hearing him going, ooh, ah, in the background as he was getting some more information. So this should get good today. So let's go ahead and start. All right. Where are you wanting to begin with your fascinations and
minutes?
Can you read them?
Okay, no. All right, so what was going on first in Matthew 15?
Okay, so in Matthew 15, the first part is where he's talking with the Pharisees, and they are talking about the traditions of the elders and God's law and what they were doing with the Corban and all that.
Okay, so here is where you get a separation. Actually, a little bit before, but we're not going to go there. So, a lot of times when Christians are interested in the roots of their faith, they think, well, I'll study Judaism. And nothing wrong with that, but Judaism is a Messianic Jew would more than likely say that Judaism is not the faith of Moses. You know, when Christians say Judaism, we tend to lump everything from Abraham through the Ten Commandments and on into today. Messianic Jews would not do that. The argument that I've heard from them is that according to the Torah, the Ten Commandments, the law, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, the Word of God, the law, the teaching, the way, it's all the same. That's Torah. That according to that, you need a priesthood, you need a blood sacrifice, and you need a temple. Those are the three things that in God's law, according to what he told Moses, Moses wrote down in the Torah, those are the three things that you need. And
say this again.
Priesthood, blood sacrifice, and a temple.
You think that could also be represented the Trinity?
Sure. But Judaism today does not have any of those three. They don't have a priesthood. They have rabbis, but they don't have a priesthood. They don't have blood sacrifices, and they don't have a temple. Christianity has a priesthood. Right? We're royal priesthood. Jesus is the high priest on the order of Melchizedek. Christians have blood sacrifice. Obviously, we just had Easter. And we have a temple, right? Temples in heaven, and we're the temple. So Christianity has all three of the things that the Old Testament religion, the law of Moses, says that you have to have. What happened was back in the Second Temple period, in between the Old Testament and New Testament, is you didn't have Pharisees and Sadducees and all this stuff in the Old Testament, but the New Testament, we've got all these different groups. So different beliefs started popping up within Israel, within the tribe of Judah, since it was really the only one left. And modern Judaism, what we have today, started in that intertestamental period with the Pharisees. So the Pharisees are the ancestors of Judaism today. The Sadducees, they don't exist anymore. And some make the argument that the Essenes of then were some of the ancestors of Christians. It's neither here nor there. Right now, Judaism comes out of the traditions of the elders. So the tradition of the elders at this time, in Jesus' time, they were still oral. Another word for them was the oral law. They believed that God gave Moses the written law, and then he also was like, hey, Moses, here's the secret part that you can't tell anybody, and here's the oral law, the extra stuff that you need to know. And so they believed that there was a oral part to that was not written down. It wasn't written down until, after Jesus' time, and it became the Talmud, which is the Mishnah, and the Mishnah is the written down part, and the Germa, maybe I'm not saying that quite right, is the exposition of that. So these traditions of the elders is the basis. It was called the oral law back then. It's the basis of the Talmud now. Now I would point out, well, Jesus kind of he of course throws it at the Pharisees, saying, they're asking Jesus, why don't your disciples wash their hands? And Jesus is going, that's not written down in the Torah. That's not part of God's laws. That's part of your stuff that you're saying people should do. That's not part of the law. That's not part of the Old Testament. If you,
he flips it and goes, but you are.
In fact, you're actually by following this Talmud, you're breaking the Torah. Yeah. I try not, or the Tanakh. We'll call it the Tanakh. The whole what we call Old Testament. Now it would behoove us to be careful as Christians, because a lot of Jews today, they have the Tanakh, they have the Old Testament, but they don't follow the Old Testament as much. Like, they don't preach out, they don't study, they don't read the Tanakh as much as they do the Talmud. So be careful, Christians, because about the same time the Talmud was put down was the same time the New Testament was put down. We need to be careful that we don't just read the New Testament and we forget about the Tanakh, because the New Testament interprets what the Tanakh is saying. The refreshed covenant, the additional covenant, the New Testament. We can't throw out the Tanakh. You have to keep the Old Testament with the New Testament.
Well, it's like Paul says, and I can't remember where it is, maybe you remember where it is, but they were supposed to keep the festivals. And that's in the Old Testament.
Jesus didn't come to destroy the law of the prophets. So Jesus is getting on to the Pharisees, saying, actually, your Mishnah breaks the Torah. So be careful. The New Testament without the Old Testament is also breaking God's law. Be careful there. Okay, now to the part I have more stuff on.
Oh boy.
I know. Sorry, that was only one sentence.
So where are we going?
The Syrophoenician woman.
Okay, so then we talked about the woman who was in Tyre, Sidon, that came with the demon-possessed daughter.
Okay, so the area she's from, Tyre. Remember, Jezebel was from the kingdom there. That the capital was Tyre, and she was born in Sidon. It's not a very good lady there. Especially in Hebrew history, is born there. But now it should also be noted that Hiram was the king of Tyre, the one that right. Provided all the stuff. There was like a brother to David. In fact, some of the other ancient documents that we have says that Tyre loved God so much that he sent to David and said, "Hey, I want to set up a temple and a priesthood here in Tyre too, because I love God so much." And David had to say, that's really, really cool, but there really only needs to be one temple. You keep loving God, keep doing that. Send the stuff, worship Him, but there really needs to be just one temple. So Hiram loved God. We also know the widow of Zarephath was in that region as well too. So there was a history of godly folks in this area. As well as not very godly folks. So maybe the woman, we know that Jesus' fame had spread as far as Sidon. So she had heard of Yeshua, and she had heard of, through Hiram and the widow of Zarephath, that those stories would still be around about who God really was.
So that's why she would have been able to recognize, say, Lord, Son of David.
Oh boy. Okay. Oh, it's interesting that Jesus told the disciples to not go to any Gentile territories when he sent them out.
Yeah, that was only a couple chapters ago.
Yeah, just a few chapters ago, Jesus said, you're not going to Gentile territories. And then here he is going to a Gentile territory. But as you notice, he's not, he's following the same rule that he laid down for the disciples. He's not going to do ministry. He's going to get rest.
That was the part of the withdrawing.
Yeah, he was going to withdraw. So then she cries out, Lord, Son of David, presents her plea, and he ignores her. And he ignores her. It's interesting. She calls out. Well, no, I'll get to that in a second. It's interesting. After he ignores her, then the disciples, some commentators say that they actually pleaded for her to answer him. See, because I know that what's it say there? The disciples say, send her away because she keeps following us. It's kind of like what Jesus was talking about, the unrighteous judge who, because the woman kept presenting her case, he was like, okay, fine, I'll find in your favor. So the disciples may have actually been saying, Jesus, like, give her what she wants. Please give her what she wants, so she'll stop following us around.
FYI, we're at 11 minutes. This is why.
So it's also interesting that he gave no reply when she called him by his messianic title, Son of David. But then when she called again, Lord, that's when he did stop and answer her.
No, but she does say Lord, Son of David.
Yeah, Lord, Son of David, and he ignores her. The second time, she drops the messianic title because she doesn't have any claim on the messianic title right now. She can't come to him under that. She can come to him as creator, as Lord, as master. Interesting that she says master there, and later on, she says, Jesus, it's not fit to give the children's breads to the dogs, to the puppies, and then she comes back with, yes, but even the puppies under their master's table. So she's saying, yeah, but even the master's kids let the master's dogs get to have his crumbs. So she's saying, yes, I'm a dog, but I'm my master's dog. Yeah. Yes, I'm a dog, but I'm your dog.
And he responds to her faith in that.
Yeah, there was only 2 times that Jesus marveled and said this person has great faith, and they were both Gentiles. One was the centurion, the other is here. Okay, the last thing I have is how much.
The feeding.
What?
Are you talking about the feeding?
No. The last thing I have is how much her responses. Well, one, they show that chutzpah that Jesus had talked about he wanted to see, that God wants people to have, is chutzpah. The other is, and tell me if you've heard this before, basically she said, I will not let go until you bless me. Oh, that sounds Jacob? Like Jacob when his name was changed to Israel.
Good. So what is chutzpah, real quick?
Chutzpah is the guts, the stones, the gonads, the aggressive, I'm going to get this no matter what. Not pervasive.
Bulldog tenacity.
The tenacity, yeah, tenacious gutsiness.
All right. Well, we'll end there since we're over 12 minutes. But hopefully you enjoyed that, and we can discuss more next time. Thank you for joining me again. Now you're locked in for every Friday.